She's been a Rotarian for 9 years. So you can be district governor in 9 years.
There you go. Wait, what?
How long have you been in Rotary, Glenn?
6 months. Besides Rotary, her passion is for nursing and trauma centers. Juliet worked as a trauma nurse for 19 years at Lehigh Valley Health Network in Allentown, PA, working as an ICU nurse and a trauma program manager in supporting the hospital services as a level 1 trauma center. She currently serves as the executive director of the PA Trauma Systems Foundation, which is the accredited body for trauma centers in PA, which I think, is there one in Williamsport? Because did Norm probably go to one?
There is.
Yeah, he probably went to one up there.
Where he was.
Yeah, there you go. And hopes to combine her passions for nursing and trauma centers and serving the community throughout her year as district governor. She will strive to be of support to our clubs in the district in thinking big and imagining Rotary in new ways. Please join me in welcoming Juliet.
Thanks, everyone. It's such a privilege to be here. You know, when I was looking at my visit schedule, I thought this is like one of my favorite clubs. I think way back, pre-pandemic, when my own club was starting an alternative meeting, I invited both Kevin and Dennis to do a presentation. I came here to the evening setting to experience the enthusiasm of your club, and you're really role models of what's good in Rotary. I mean, you really moved the growth of your club forward. The latest statistics came out for membership in our district, and you're among the top 5 in terms of volume. So it's York, Lancaster, and then you're sort of tied with the Rotary Club of Harrisburg right now. So that's a real credit to your club for thinking big. And so I'm here as district governor to share with you some of the strategic priorities of Rotary International. So, you know, when I was first exploring Rotary 9 years ago, I actually didn't know much about Rotary. Where I grew up in Palmerton, Pennsylvania, there were no Rotary clubs. And I went through the Leadership Harrisburg area program. I got to know Una Martone, and I was reading an article in The Berg, a publication that featured Una as an incoming district governor and talked about women in leadership in Rotary. That was the first time I realized I thought Rotary was a men's organization. And as I popped around and explored different clubs, the Rotary Club of Harrisburg being the first because Una invited me, I went to Mechanicsburg North, close to my work, the right time of day, and my first meeting there, they had a district governor visit. And at the time, you know, I was absorbing all the Rotary traditions, the bell, the 4-way test, the district governor term. Everyone stands, applauds, and I'm like, what's a district governor? Like, what is this all about? And someone said to me, well, they go and they visit clubs. And I said, do they do anything else? And they couldn't answer that question. So for those of you who don't quite know what I do or district leadership, you know, I'm really an ambassador for Rotary International. There's quite a lot of training, leadership training that comes with the position, as Dennis knows, over the course of many years, so that when I visit clubs, I'm not only conveying the priorities strategically of Rotary International, but I'm always listening and picking up best practices from all the clubs I go to. And as clubs which are not as high functioning as your own struggle, then I can sort of share best practices from other clubs along the way. So it's been a real privilege for me I've gone through about half of the clubs at this point, about 20 clubs. So many different kinds of cultures, from very tiny clubs to much larger ones. So even this week, I experienced the pomp and circumstance of the Rotary Club of York at a country club. They've got the highest membership, 272 members in the district. I also visited the Rotary Club of Harrisburg, also used to be a much larger club. They're at about the same membership as you, about 135 now. And across the board, every club has been telling me it's just been a challenging time of engagement for the membership. We've been through a global pandemic. It's no surprise that this has hit us in a big way, and people have become disconnected. So a part of the strategic priorities that I will mention to you are related to engagement. And how do we really imagine Rotary in new ways, think big, think differently in more non-traditional ways, so we can grow Rotary with members that maybe we haven't quite reached out to in the past for a variety of reasons. In my own place of employment, I've got some new staff. They see Rotary all over my calendar, and I've been asked, so, you're really active with Rotary. What is Rotary? And I bet if any one of us answered that question, it's almost tough to quantify. At a minimum, for the 5-second elevator speech, you would say, well, we're dedicated to service. We do service in the community and internationally as well. But there's, especially for those of you who've been in Rotary a long time, we're much more than a service organization. And I loved the reflection from Paul Harris this morning. That was a wonderful overview of all the different facets of Rotary. It's more than service, it's leadership development, it's outreach, it's fostering goodwill, it's fellowship, it's so many things. So, I think one of the best ways for us to explain Rotary is to tell our stories. I think we've probably all been impacted in different ways by how Rotary has not only impacted our community, but ourselves personally. So I'd like to start off with a story that I have found very meaningful for why I've joined Rotary for service, sure, but why I stay in Rotary. And yes, it's the friendships and the wonderful people, but it's also how I've been able to use all those skills I've developed over time as a nurse, working in a trauma center, and now in a statewide position, and what I've told my own board of directors for how Rotary has impacted me in terms of leadership and in terms of reach for my own paid position. So my story is as follows. In 2019 or 18, there was a 10-year-old boy who in East Pennsboro Township was with his friends riding his bicycle, and he was hit by a car. It was a very severe traumatic injury. All his extremities were broken. He was bleeding profusely. The driver of the car called 911. It took a while for the ambulance to get there. Fortunately, that crash happened near police station. The policemen came out, and I thought I did have a tourniquet here, but where is it?
It's down. Look underneath, in the hole.
Ah! The policeman came and applied a tourniquet like this, a $20 tourniquet, to each of the boy's extremities to control the bleeding. The ambulance came. That boy was taken to Hershey Medical Center. They are a combined adult and pediatric trauma center, and his life was saved. So why is that so meaningful to me, apart from he went to a trauma center? Well, a couple years before, I was program coordinator for our club's various programs, and of course I have a bias to bringing healthcare people in. And I brought the local trauma center injury prevention coordinator into the meeting. And her name is Sunny Goodyear, and she works at Penn State Holy Spirit, and she taught a mini Stop the Bleed course for our club. Very well received. We then put some philanthropy dollars toward purchasing some Stop the Bleed kits. Stop the Bleed is a program that was actually launched in a big way in 2012 after a mass shooting occurred in one of the schools. And it's been really promoted nationally among the EMS and trauma center community as being a great course for the general public to learn prior to EMS arrival. So we donated Stop the Bleed kits to the local school, and then a year later we used a district club grant, $2,500, with a district match of $2,500 to purchase tourniquets. We purchased 300 tourniquets for the East Pennsboro Township Police Department, and it was our tourniquets that were on the belt of the police officers that helped save the boy's life. So for me, that was a coming together of my professional passions and my Rotary passions to do things I couldn't have done alone in my paid job or Rotary solo job. So each of us, it's an example of how each of us, though, has the ability to use our passions, whether they're from our work or our volunteer lives, to really do good in the community. And one of the questions I always ask when I go to Rotary clubs is, how many people here volunteer outside of your Rotary club for any other organization? Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, every club I go to, it's not just Rotary you're volunteering with, but a whole host of other clubs. And these partnerships that can be developed through your connections with these other volunteer organizations, if you could bring them into our Rotary circles, think of the good we could do by bringing more members in and more service and really fostering activity in that way. So I'm going to show you a slide. Here, this was a boy and his parents. There was a media event back at the East Pennsboro Township building that gave awards to the police officers who put the tourniquets on the little boy's extremities. And the local news stations were there, CBS News, it went on to Penn Live, and at a national meeting that my paid job sponsored statewide, a representative from the American College of Surgeons Stop the Bleed program spoke, and I saw this photo on the PowerPoint, and the National American College of Surgeons said this is an example of how a Rotary club can partner with their local trauma center to do good in the community. So it's something that's near and dear to my heart. I like to promote this to the clubs I go to. We have 4 trauma centers within our district. If you want a mini Stop the Bleed class at your club meeting, reach out to me. I can connect you with the right person. If you want it at a community event, I can help you do that as well. And I hope that in the spring, in conjunction with our district conference, we're going to have sort of a community outreach program where we're going to feature Stop the Bleed in a big way. We're looking at having Stop the Bleed at the local baseball park in Harrisburg, and maybe having it on the Jumbotron and making it a big Rotary event with the 4 trauma centers in our district. So that's something that I'm really passionate about, and if you'd like to participate, just let me know. So a little bit about Rotary's strategic priorities. There are 4 of them that Rotary is really honing in on, that they would like our districts to think about and our clubs for how to best grow and engage and serve our community through Rotary. So the very first strategic priority is related to impact. There's certainly a lot of focus areas of service that can meet everyone's needs for how to make an impact, and there's 7 of those right now. The environment being the one that's newer to Rotary. But from a Rotary International standpoint, Rotary is really looking at how do we quantify our impact in the world through our Rotary Foundation, through our global grant projects, even at the district level. And as clubs explore what they do for the community, try to prioritize big impact kinds of activities. We all have limited money, limited time, limited resources, and so it's important for clubs and districts to constantly reevaluate priorities related to service and think about what makes the biggest impact. One way to think about the priorities of your community is to think about doing a community needs assessment. I can tell you that hospitals are required to do a needs assessment every 3 years. You could go onto your local hospital's website and look at what they see as needs for the community. And you could also partner or do a needs assessment solo to think, what are the relevant needs locally, which do change over time, and it's something we all need to be aware of. So, needs assessments, really prioritizing our service activities and getting the word out. So as we do a tremendous amount of great work in our community. Social media and putting it out there is really important through every media platform possible, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, a YouTube channel, and the media. So getting the media involved in some of your events to get the word out is really important. The second strategic priority is related to reach. So how do we as Rotarians extend the reach of what we do outside groups that maybe we just haven't tapped into in the past? Does our club membership really reflect the community in which we live? Some ways that we're trying to extend the reach through various district initiatives are several. One of them is through a district DEI committee, diversity, equity, inclusion, and even adding accessibility. Are our clubs as welcoming as they could be? Does everyone who come, maybe a new exploring member, feel welcomed? I'm sure they do in your club, but it's not necessarily the case through all clubs based on the culture of the club. When we had our first district DEI committee, there were a few clubs that already had these committees, and they actually did a survey monkey for their membership. And one of the clubs said, we found out we're the most unwelcoming club out there, and we really need to kick it up a notch. And kicking it up might mean even from aspects of accessibility. Are we wheelchair friendly? Are we looking at our statistics within our club, even from a gender standpoint? So when you look at women in Rotary, just within our district right now, women comprise 28%. We need to get that up higher. Rotary International statistics are 20% for women. I mentioned, and you may not be aware of this, an announcement came out this past week that for 2024-2025, there will be another female Rotary International president from Pennsylvania, Stephanie Urchik. So this is huge that Pennsylvania will be represented on the Rotary International stage. If you follow Jennifer Jones, the first month of her presidency, did an impact tour of Canada. So I'm thinking maybe we all need to plan here in our district, how do we put Pennsylvania on the map for the good work we do? And I will be, in about a month, going to a zone conference, and I'm going to try to reach out to Stephanie, and maybe we need to start planning now for how to really applaud the next female RI president coming in from Pennsylvania. As far as public image from the district standpoint, we're trying to kick it up a notch. As I visit different clubs, I'm doing 1 to 2 minute videos. For any of you that would like to stay for a couple minutes after this meeting, just for a minute or two, I will use my iPhone, I'll take a video, you'll say who you are, how long you've been part of this club, and what you think is really special about this club and why people should join. Those videos will be doctored up by my brother-in-law, whose paid job is within video production. He'll make you look really good. You'll have your name across. There'll be music in the background. And there will be little PSAs going out with membership spotlights, and it'll feature different clubs. And then at the end of the year, we're going to merge these videos to give a picture of Rotary within our district. So that's something new that we'll be doing. Our membership chair, PDG John Anthony, he had a medical incident that he's recovering from, but has big plans for the coming year. One of them being the Educators Summit, which will be next Thursday. It will be by Zoom. It's just an hour. Its purpose is to bring anybody involved in education together to see how can we promote vocations, certain vocational groups within Rotary. I know in my own healthcare circles, it's very difficult to get healthcare workers as members in Rotary. I don't know of another nurse that's a Rotarian, much less physicians, unless they're retired as Rotarians right now in our district. A dream of mine, maybe after my district governor year, is to form a hospital-based Rotary Club. So hospital workers don't have to leave the hospital. Maybe during lunch we have a meeting. These kinds of innovative club types are something Rotary International is promoting. These clubs can be formed at places of business. They can be formed around causes like the environment. I know there's a human trafficking Rotary Club out there. The sky's the limit with the flexibility that Rotary International is giving us to form any kind of innovative club model. As far as the 20 clubs I've visited so far, hands down, almost every club is looking at developing an alternate meeting model. For those who are breakfast and lunch clubs, they're looking at an evening venue, order off the menu, reduce the dues, and make it more reasonable. And every club I go to, I ask about the dues. So how much do you charge? There are some clubs that are a bit rigid, who want to continue to include food. There are some tiny clubs that I've been shocked at, 20-member clubs charging $1,200 a year to be part of the club. That's extraordinary, and that can be limiting to new members as they're exploring. It's certainly something I took into consideration when I was looking for a Rotary Club, And my husband's a Rotarian, and actually when we dated, I invited him into service activities, and he naturally sort of became one of the Rotary family and moved forward in membership. As dues are escalating, even I'm thinking, ooh, my own club. It's getting a little expensive to have both a husband and wife team involved. I asked about your own dues structure, very reasonable. Passport Club, our district passport club, another very reasonable kind of flexible option for members. If a member's leaving a club because of money for any reason, that club was formed as a safety net. It is an e-club, but it's growing. It's one of the 5 clubs in our district that is showing some growth. So these are all innovative sort of models for how we should and could look to the future to increase our reach. These are some organizations that I'm involved in as far as Stop the Bleed, and that I hope to bring in as partners. We all have work environments. Many of us belong to boards and various groups. So think about all these organizations you're involved in. These are mine. I'm on the board of an EMS council. When I go to visit clubs, I also say, hey, if there's any way you can partner with EMS, all the better. We've got a really critical situation with EMS in Pennsylvania. We've got an EMS staff shortage. For those who are paid EMS, the wages are low. And EMS has a real focus on the community. They are teaching Stop the Bleed as well, so that is a great partnership if you can do it. Engagement. Engagement is probably the #1 priority, particularly as we're moving out of this sort of disconnected time of the global pandemic. How do we engage our members in new ways? Those that have disconnected with us, aren't coming back to our in-person meetings for a variety of reasons. What do we need to do to get them back into the fold? So one way is just to ask our members, what do they like about our club? What would they love to change about our club? Where are their passions? Are there different kinds of service they would like to be involved in? Or fundraising? What skills can we tap into that can help out our club? Simply asking the question. At the district office, we are happy to help out any club with putting out a Survey Monkey. Very simple Survey Monkey on an annual basis that can help ask this question and help clubs plan for the future and maybe pivot in different directions based on the changing nature of their club membership and the passions and the interests of their members. Certainly, when I talked about reach, I did talk about women in Rotary, but also a group that we need to tap into more is youth. We are an aging district. A large percentage of our members is in an older category, And so anything we can do to engage the younger generation, the 20-something generation, who has to have different interests than various other age categories, the better. Increasing our ability to adapt. Boy, did we have to adapt during the pandemic. And we probably went kicking and screaming, some of us. I think it's important, though, to learn some lessons from the pandemic with how some clubs, at least, were able to retain some members even when they weren't meeting in person. Technology did play a role in in helping members feel connected. Not everyone enjoys the Zoom screen, and some of us are all zoomed out. But I do remember when my club pivoted immediately to Zoom, there were members that we hadn't heard from for a while that were suddenly on the screen. And we're very excited that they were feeling included once again. It's still happening. Even pre-pandemic, we would do, and I don't know if we're on Facebook Live right now, but our club used to do Facebook Live. And if I was on vacation, I would just love to connect in and see, hey, I wonder what my club's doing. I wonder what the speaker is. It doesn't have to be high tech to use some of this technology. But not only engagement in technology, but also just being relevant, sort of moving with the times. We've got a whole set of issues and challenges in our world, even during the last couple of years. The reflection talked about how we are a non-religious, non-political organization. I'm sure many of you have experienced an increased divisiveness in our world the last couple years. People feel more willing to put negative commentary within social media. And we as Rotarians, one of our focus areas is peace and conflict resolution. I've been to a few clubs where this continues to be an issue. We're heading into an election soon. How do we maintain the peace with people who have different viewpoints than us? There was an article that came out recently disturbing about polio. So in the New York City area, polio virus has now been found in wastewater. They think polio is taking off in a county in New York City right now to a great extent, because if you're finding it in wastewater, it means more than one person's got it. And it's in a community where there is a lack of immunization for polio. So immunization is a drum we need to keep beating on. We now have polio in our country, in New York. It's hard to believe. But even with the pandemic, the whole topic of immunization caused, some controversy and divisiveness. So as we adapt, we have to think about how do we as Rotarians keep the peace, continue to connect in fellowship, maintain that welcoming environment where people come for service like me, but stay because of the great quality of the people within our clubs. This last slide is a photo, and I think some of you are in it. It's from the RI convention in Houston, Texas. What a great event. After several years of being virtual, very uplifting. How many people here have been to a convention? That's a lot compared to many other clubs. Going to a convention helps you feel like you're part of an international community in a bigger way, and it really helps bring it all together. The value of Rotary throughout the world. And so this photo was taken outside the building in Houston. I want to let everyone know that I will be putting out criteria for the district governor citation soon. So annually, the district governor gets to decide which clubs get special awards based on completing certain criteria. Because it's Imagine Rotary and we're imagining Rotary in new ways, the criteria that you'll see is that a club will have to show they've done one new service activity they've never done before. They've created one new partnership. And for some clubs, I'm saying that partnership could be with another Rotary club. I've gone to regions of our district where there are clubs, multiple clubs within 5 minutes of each other, but they don't talk to one another. Some of my meetings are now involving multiple clubs, and it's been fantastic to get the energy of multiple clubs in the same room to talk about Rotaract and Interact. That's a whole other area that's really, we don't know the status in our district related to those clubs, and how do we need to reinvigorate those areas. So that's another piece of the district governor citation. A third piece is, let's all commit to learning more about Rotary. How many people here have been to the Rotary Leadership Institute? Yes, awesome numbers. You know, a lot of people haven't heard about it. My own club, when we budget, we make sure we budget for 8 people. We make sure all our board members go through it. But the Rotary Leadership Institute is a fantastic way to learn about the depth and breadth of Rotary. Our next RLI is on October 22nd at Central Penn College, in person after a virtual hiatus, so please think about it. If you haven't been through it, there's 4 different levels. It's worth every minute on a Saturday to go through the Rotary Leadership Institute. Before I end, I do want to show you this print on the side here. So about 6 months ago, during the winter, I got a tube and a care package in the mail from Jennifer Jones. Jennifer Jones sent a package to every incoming district governor, and in the cardboard tube was this signed limited edition print. It was created by her brother. His signature is on here. There are 600 of these, no more. She wants each district governor to auction this off to benefit polio. So I'm taking this to all the clubs so everyone gets to see it. I'm then going to have sort of a virtual silent auction, and then by the end of the year, we'll see how much money we can collect for polio. So that's the print from Jennifer Jones, and there's a lot of symbolism related to it, but you'll hear more about that in the Rotary Reporter. So that's my talk for all of you. It's been a great privilege to be with you here today. I hope I could take a group picture if you have a minute or two. After every meeting, I post on social media my experience with the club, a few fun facts, and even a video if anyone's willing to do like a 1 or 2 minute video for me. So thanks very much for your time and for all you do for Rotary. I appreciate it.